Happy Thursday, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Molly Curran, and I'm a university recruiter based out of our Chicago office. We are so excited to have you join us today for a live session to learn more about our Purple Paladin program. You're welcome to turn off your videos and enjoy the session with our presenters. Feel free to utilize the chat box for any questions or comments throughout the session. I'll now pass it over to Laura and Elise to introduce themselves and kick off today's presentation. Take it away, Laura and Elise.
Great, thank you, Molly. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to join you today for this special session to talk about one of the ways that Grant Thornton gives back in the community through our Purple Paladin program. As Molly mentioned, my name is Laura Iles. I'm a Associate Director of Community Impact and Cause Marketing and work closely with my colleague Elise to run this program and other ways that our organization gives back for Grant Thornton. And you are my favorite folks to talk to. I am a mother of a freshman and sophomore in college. So I understand a bit about how your year has been a little challenging, but I have such great hope for our future because of you young people. I was just on campus. My youngest goes to the University of Kansas, so Rock Chalk Jayhawk for any if any KU folks were out there. And I was there for Mom's Weekend, which I'm still recovering from. So should your moms visit you at college on your campuses, I hope they too need days to recover because it's so much fun. So but really happy to have you all here. Super excited to tell you about our program, which I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and friend Elise to jump into some more details.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Elise Hitchcock, and I'm a manager on the Community Impact and Cause Marketing team, working very closely with Laura on all things Purple Paladin. So we love to say we get the fun job here at Grant Thornton. I've been at Grant Thornton since 2014 in a number of different roles. Love the firm and have just had a great experience throughout my time here. But we are excited today that you're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking with us and listening to us talk about our Purple Paladin program. As I'm sure you all know, giving back isn't unique to Grant Thornton. You've heard most companies have programs that engage their employees and invest in the communities in some way, but often companies partner with large and well-established organizations that do good work, but in very specific areas. And we're very excited to share our approach with you today to cause marketing and the community. And it's very, very unique to corporate philanthropy. We bring our firm together several times a year to support early stage up and coming not-for-profits led by innovators and game changers, and we call those our Purple Paladins. Before we really get into diving deep into this program, I wanted to ask everyone to take a minute and think of an organization, whether it's big or small, that's made an impact in your life or has inspired you guys in some way. Go ahead and type that in the chat, and we'll give it just a second to see some of these organizations that pop up. And while you guys are typing those in, our Purple Paladins, they change their communities, and we're really honored to be able to come alongside them and watch as they take their organization from startup to unstoppable. And in a second, we're going to show you our Paladin video. But now I'm just watching all of the organizations come through the chat. Yeah, these are great. Awesome. So you guys clearly are familiar with great organizations, which makes it nice. Okay, so to show you what the Purple Paladin program is all about, we're going to take a second and show you some highlights of the program before we introduce you to two special guests we have today. So Molly, I'm going to turn it over to you to show the Paladin information video.
Today's heroes don't wear armor. They're everyday people who take on real issues, from disease and hunger to poverty and inequality. At Grant Thornton, we call them Purple Paladins, innovators who break down barriers and build up hope. This program is dedicated to accelerating their efforts, focusing on emerging organizations with noble ambitions. We join their cause by providing people, funding, advice, and a platform. Because Paladins need our support, and the world needs Paladins today more than ever. Get ready to see our first Purple Paladin.
Awesome. Thanks, Molly, for sharing that. So we started this program back in August of 2019 and have had the privilege of working with 7 not-for-profits over that time. And within the next 8 weeks or so, we're going to be announcing our 8th Purple Paladin. So it's very exciting. These organizations address a diverse social issues ranging from health to hunger, inequality to accessibility. And we kicked it all off with a young girl working hard to make other kids smile. So we wanted to introduce you today to our very first Purple Paladin, Coming Up Rosies. And Molly is going to share a video about our first Purple Paladin.
Hi, my name is Rosie Quinn. Want to hear a story? I'm 8 years old. I go to St. Clement School and I'm in 3rd grade. My best friend is my sister, Caroline. When I was little, I actually said my hair was on vacation, but now I would explain alopecia. I came up with the idea, but my mom does the working stuff.
Rosie is our 8-year-old daughter. We noticed when Rosie was 3.5 that when we were out and about in our communities that people, and mainly children, were starting to point and stare and ask questions of why was this little girl bald or is she a boy? And we noticed that Rosie was really starting to be aware of this and actually was becoming quite, ashamed of how she looked. So we took one of her paintings. She loved to paint, had it printed on this little headscarf. And when we gave it to her, she just wanted this feeling that she had. She wanted to share it with all these other little children. We decided to start Coming Up Rosies.
Coming Up Rosies is a charity for the bald kids who have cancer and diseases. So a smile kit is a canvas with some paints and paintbrushes. We tie it all together and ship it to them. They can paint on it, but take a picture, then they send it to us, then it turns into a cape, neck scarf, and then a headscarf.
When I heard about Grant Thornton's Purple Paladin program, I immediately pinched myself. It could be a potential life-changing moment.
One day, Grant Thornton chose me as their first Purple Paladin, and I got to meet Ricky Fowler.
Being chosen, I feel like we're speechless. And every night we go to bed thinking we are so blessed to have this opportunity to spread this joy to other children and have the financial means to do so. The initial support was this amazing check, and for us, that basically doubled our charity right then in that one moment. The partnership with Grant Thornton is not just a check. Instead, it's been described to us as feeling an embrace or a hug in whatever capacity that we need to grow and scale our organization.
I'm so excited to have Grant Thornton helping us, and it's only the beginning. I'm so excited. Hi, my name is Rosie Quinn, and I'm a Purple Paladin.
Thanks for sharing that, Molly. It's been, my goodness, almost 2 years since that, and we still just love Rosie so much. So just seeing that always makes me smile. Rosie and all of our Paladins really are truly inspiring, and we love working with them and are always in awe of the work that they do. For the rest of our time together, we're actually going to be talking to 2 of our Purple Paladins, Liam Elkin of Invisible Hands Deliver and Joe English of Hope in a Box. We'll have some time at the end to do a quick Q&A with them. So go ahead and think about questions and feel free to drop them in the chat while we have our conversation. But before we actually meet the founders, we're going to take a second and learn about each of these organizations. So first, we're going to learn about Invisible Hands Delivers.
I knew that there were vulnerable people who were sitting in their homes scared and who had no way of getting food. And so I was looking for a way to give back to my community in a time of need and in a time of crisis.
I was walking home to my apartment in Queens, and I passed my local supermarket, and I saw a lot of elderly folk, going in and out of the store. I wish I could go in and do their shopping for them so they could stay outside.
And when I saw my friend Simone's post on Facebook, I remember thinking, this is it. This is the way that I can give back. But what I didn't realize was how many people there were out there who were feeling the exact same way. that sense of, I want to do some good right now. What can I offer to my community? And within 3 days, we had a couple thousand volunteers. We now have over 10,000 volunteers serving New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, Westchester, Long Island. Invisible Hands' mission is to cultivate a community of grassroots organizers and volunteers who fight food insecurity and inaccessibility through free deliveries to those most at risk.
Invisible Hands definitely could not have existed or succeeded in the way that it has in any other technological era.
Our goal was simply just to deliver essentials to people in need. However, what happened was that we were able to form these friendships.
It was thrilling to find out that we had been selected as a Purple Paladin. I think that the program itself is fundamentally based around supporting new and upcoming organizations that are doing good in the world and just need a little bit more institutional backing to really maximize their impact. And so we're honored and thrilled and really excited to be able to work with Grant Thornton. 1 in 4 New Yorkers is food insecure right now.
And that is why we do this. And that's why we will keep doing this. And, you know, what COVID looks like is going to change, but there's always going to be people who need help and who need support. And we want to make sure to continue to offer that for as long as we possibly can.
Thanks, Molly. Such a great organization. Invisible Hands Deliver was actually our 4th Purple Paladin. And one of the many unique things about the Purple Paladin program is that even after we announce a new Paladin, we continue to work with all of our Paladins in different ways throughout the firm. Sometimes we'll do client events and with other Paladins, and you'll often see them speaking at a variety of firm meetings. Now let's watch our final video and meet one of our newest Paladins, Hope in a Box.
85% of high school students report hearing derogatory language about LGBTQ people in school, but just 13% of students heard any positive representation or mention of LGBTQ identities in school.
Being an LGBTQ plus student at my school, I felt like I was alone.
No one understood really what that meant or how the experience might be different, myself included.
I wasn't out in school. Seeing yourself in characters, in books, in movies, in print is so empowering.
For me, it would have meant the absolute world to have had even one book with one gay character to read when I was in school, to have a character and a story that I could really identify with. Open a Box has a very simple vision, which is that every single student deserves to feel safe and welcome and included at school, regardless of their gender identity, regardless of their sexual orientation. And we really see literature as a key piece of that puzzle, where in the hands of a caring teacher, books and stories really do have the power to open hearts and minds and cultivate empathy among students. Our organization provides something called Hope in a Box, which is really 3 things. The first is a curated set of books that have LGBTQ characters. The second is detailed curriculum for those books to make it as easy as possible for educators to actually use them in their classroom. And the third piece is all kinds of peer-to-peer mentorship, community building, training for educators to help them work through all of the questions and scenarios that come up in the classroom as they work with these materials for the first time. As a student opens the books that we have in our box, I think it opens their mind to the possibility in a way that feels really authentic. So far, Hope in a Box has reached 300 school districts across the United States, and that's in 48 states. We're impacting nearly 50,000 students across all of those schools. In my mind, an everyday hero is someone who sees a challenge or an opportunity in their community and does something about it. We're proud to be part of Grant Thornton's Purple Paladin program and have their support in creating more diverse, inclusive, and empathetic classrooms nationwide.
Awesome. Another great organization. And I'm so excited to tell you that actually since becoming a Purple Paladin, Hope in a Box is now in all 50 states. So that's a huge accomplishment for them. And we're so excited for them. Now it's my great privilege to introduce Joe and Liam, and I'm going to turn it over to Laura for the conversation part.
Thanks. Oh my gosh, I love love to revisit those videos and your missions. And I just can remember so well first hearing about your organizations. They're so meaningful and innovative, and we just love our partnership with you all. And interesting to this group in particular might be that Joe is a relatively recent college grad, just a few years ago. And Liam is going into his senior year after taking a year off to devote all of his time to Invisible Hands Deliver. So their experience is either very similar to what you're doing now or not too far ago. So I think it's always interesting to me when I think about my own children or when I was a college student to have the opportunity to be inspired by folks like Joe and Liam who found this purpose and found a way to kind of address a need that they saw and take sort of an idea from just being an idea to turning it into something pretty incredible. So I'm sure you'll be as inspired as we are. So we'll start off our conversation. And again, just as Elise said, we will have Q&A at the end, but if you think of something, throw it in the chat. Elise, hopefully you can monitor that so I don't get distracted.
I got it.
Yeah, and we will do our best to answer your questions, but so please ask away. And obviously you can find more information about these folks and their organizations on their websites. But to kick things off, Liam, I'd love to turn to you and have you share just your experience of launching this organization. We always like to say basically from a dorm room, although I think we were newly home at the time that you kicked this off, and how you even had sort of the presence of mind to dig in so deep at the beginning of a global pandemic with other things you even had just going on in your life. So would love to just hear a little bit of your story for these folks.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Laura, and to all of Grant Thornton. Hey, everybody. From a dorm room is definitely a good line that I'm now retroactively wishing I had used, because it would have been a good marketing tool to use. But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, essentially, I had left school for my spring break. I did a voter registration trip in Philadelphia, and I had just come back home, and it was March 12th, and everything was crazy, and nobody really knew what was happening. This was back in the days of sanitizing your apples when you brought them home from the supermarket, and nobody was wearing masks, which in retrospect, people will look back at us hundreds of years from now and be like, people were so stupid back then. But anyway, so, during all that huge time of uncertainty, I was feeling like, you know what, we're being told, be a hero, stay home, and all this stuff. And I was like, I get the importance of that. But at the same time, am I really being a hero by, sitting on my butt watching Netflix? I mean, I can do that for a year, trust me. And, I have done that before. But I was like, I feel like there's got to be more that I can be doing right now. And I didn't know exactly what that was. I just knew I wanted to be helpful in some way to make myself useful. And that was when I saw a post on Facebook from an old friend of mine who was saying, named Simone, and she was saying, does anybody know of a volunteer service that I could volunteer for where I could deliver to the elderly during this time when they're stuck at home, for the next 4 weeks as we're locked down. And people were commenting on that post saying, sounds like a fantastic idea. Would love to volunteer for something like that. Let me know if you hear of one. I don't know what that organization is. And so I reached out and I said, it sounds like a great idea. What if we made that organization? And so we built a website and passed around some flyers, put out the call to action on social media. And 72 hours later, we had 1,300 people signed up. And we were like, oh, crap, because what we had planned was for a group chat with some friends. And when somebody called my personal phone number, which was on the flyer, one of us would do the shopping and deliver to them. And then once we had thousands of people signing up, we were like, all right, we cannot have a group chat that's thousands of people. So we started just to operationalize this. We built a Slack workspace for it. I was suddenly in a meeting with all these fancy big shot lawyers telling us how to incorporate and how to apply for nonprofit status and the importance of buying insurance and all this stuff you never think of. And being told you're going to get sued, because these are lawyers who deal with people getting sued all the time. And I was like, why would I be sued? I'm just trying to help. So it was a crazy couple first weeks, and huge learning experience. I mean, just gigantic, whatever it's called, J curve, just trying to wrap my head around this huge thing that we had created. And, when we initially decided to buy the website, we had the choice between a $16 a month Squarespace that couldn't take donations, or a $26 a month website that could take donations. And we're like, all right, well, $10 a month difference, we'll be able to make that up. We'll get $10 a month. Then we started getting like $50 or $100. People were donating on the website or Venmoing me. And we're like, oh my God, what do we do with all this money? I'm a college student. Mostly any extra money I had, I would use for, pizza or beer. I guess I can say that now that I'm 21. But, and so we were like, all right, well, let's put the money back into the community where it belongs. And so we started up a subsidy program to not only provide food for free, to not only deliver groceries to the elderly and the immunocompromised and the sick and people with disabilities, but to pay for people's food as they were falling on hard times. And it was $30 per household per week. It was really effective. We were able to help hundreds and hundreds of families. The problem was word spread too quickly, and we were, a week or two old, and Blake Lively put that flyer that had my personal phone number on her Instagram story to her, whatever it is, bajillion followers. And then it was on L.com. And then Senator Bernie Sanders emails that flyer out to his entire pan list and says, call this number if you need free food. He didn't specify like New York, didn't specify that this is, a college student that you're calling. So I remember it was like 2 a.m. and I start getting all these calls from Texas and California being like, hey, can you deliver to me? I'm like, please let me sleep. And so we unfortunately had to shut the subsidy program down just because demand got too high. But ever since then, we've been working with food pantries and mutual aid groups and religious institutions, places that are more established that have that food or funding that we can then provide the people power for to deliver from pantries to people who are experiencing food insecurity. And so I think in a post-COVID world, that is our mission, is to deliver essentials to those in need. And essentials can mean a lot of different things. We deliver food, medicine. We were asked to deliver a urine sample. We delivered a live fish one time. And in the run-up to the 2020 election, we delivered ballots for people who were concerned about the efficacy of the USPS in the run-up to the election, in the areas where that was legal. And those in need can mean a lot of different things, right? During COVID, those in need was the elderly and people who couldn't leave their home. That issue is largely subsiding now, thank goodness, and thank science. But food insecurity is a real problem, and it's gotten so much worse as a result of this pandemic. And even once COVID-19 abates, the racial and economic inequities unveiled and exacerbated by this disease are going to continue to pervade our society for a long time. And so it's on all of us now to figure out, how do we not just get back to normal, but how do we get to good now? Because even normal was not good for too many people. And so that is our mission going forward. And I'm really excited to be able to work with a lot of community-based organizations and corporations throughout the city of New York, as well as our other service regions. We recently released an iOS and Android app. So if you're interested in volunteering, please go to the App Store, search for Invisible Hands, download, give us 5 stars, please. And we can always use more volunteers, more student leaders, because that is fundamentally what we are based around. I am still a volunteer for the organization. I have been relying on my parents' generosity and goodwill for the last year, but they're getting anxious to kick me out and send me back to college. But if any of you are interested in helping volunteer in our call center, or in-person delivering, or even starting us up in your home city, hit me up. Go to our website, invisiblehandsdeliver.org. We'd love to work with you. I know I spieled for a long time and got past the inception of Invisible Hands, but I hope that gives some context.
That gives great context, and I think answers questions people might have even just had, thinking like, what are you going to do going forward? And I always just it struck me when we met, which I think was in maybe May of last year, a lot of us were sitting at home wanting to give back and wanting to help and not knowing how to do it or what to do. And a lot of people were scared. And I think it was just really brave of you all to dedicate yourselves to this cause. I'm sure a lot of folks can relate to having someone vulnerable in your life who may or may not have lived near you, and just thinking, how I don't want my grandma to go to the grocery store and she needs groceries. And it was just like as simple as that, sort of at the very beginning, and that idea, and like she couldn't get Instacart to deliver to her because everybody in the world was suddenly using Instacart, or they didn't want to pay for it, or they couldn't figure it out. And so it's just like, I loved it when you see a need, you figured out a way to address it. And I think so many of us can do that in large and small ways in our lives when we see a gap, and we have a skill set or the drive and determination to address it. So I'm so excited that you have the app. And I know you touched on it, but I know that You don't have to be in New York to volunteer to support Invisible Hands. And maybe it's something that your community needs as well. But even if not, there are ways to volunteer kind of from anywhere for them. So
yeah. If you need service hours, we can help out with that too.
There you go. Okay, for whatever your motivation might be.
Yeah.
I like to grocery shop, so that might be one of my motivations. But anyways, so sort of turning to you, Joe. I mean, it's sort of the same thing to me, that sort of this idea of seeing a gap, seeing something that was missing, and then just sort of thinking through how could I sort of work to address this need. And so I'd love for you to give folks a little more info about your program, but also, I know even during, because it's still sort of on, it's still affecting everyone, that even in this current environment, why your program is so important and relevant as it is sort of at all times, but how it's even been affected by youth being at home during COVID, as they have been a lot over the past year. So we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful to be here. It's great to talk with all of you. Look, I mean, I think one of the most undercovered stories of the pandemic last 12 months is just the incredible challenges that LGBTQ kids have faced when they've been under lockdown. A lot of these kids have been stuck in homes where they might not be out of the closet, might not be accepted. They've been cut off from their support networks. A lot of times, that is at school, and with schools shut down, they don't have access to their friends, their mentors, people that can give them all kinds of different support that they might not have at home. And one of the just most heartbreaking statistics that I saw, this was probably 3 or 4 months ago, from the Trevor Project, was that the rate of LGBTQ kids calling suicide hotlines has doubled since before the pandemic. So this is taking like a real toll. We work with rural schools in particular, just recognizing that I think a lot of the difficulties that LGBTQ kids face are like a little bit more severe in those communities. I grew up in like a 1,900 person rural farm town way upstate New York. My parents are beekeepers by trade. We live on a big old farm. And like growing up, I never ever saw or watched or read anything that I felt spoke to me, like, as a gay person. And for me, it would have meant the absolute world to have had like even one book in school that acknowledged, hey, LGBTQ people exist. Like, we've been here, we're always going to be here. This is something that I can embrace rather than something that I'm really scared of. And like, school was a unique kind of opportunity or place to get that representation. Again, my hometown, like a lot of rural areas, we didn't have like a YMCA, we didn't have a lot of community groups. We had 3 local businesses. We had like a local farm goods store, we had a liquor store, and a funeral home. So that gives you a sense of our community. The school really is the heart and the soul of our community. And again, I think a lot of rural communities, the school plays this really important role in being able to, open kids' minds to what else is out there and know what their role is in society and community. So again, especially in a time of COVID, when people are even more isolated, whether kids are going to school in person or online, like, school has this incredible ability to be a refuge and to open kids' minds. So Hope in a Box, as you saw in the video, we basically give teachers books and curriculum, mentorship, peer-to-peer community building opportunities to show their students, gay, straight, queer, whatever they identify as, LGBTQ people matter. We're here. We respect you. We see you. And through that, really extend a lifeline and a sense of hope and empathy. So that's our kind of a little bit of what we do and why it's important today. I will say that we have about 600 schools on our wait list right now. As Elise mentioned, we work in all 50 states. We supported 300 schools this past fall, largely with help from Grant Thornton. And the need is real. It's here. And we've got a lot of work to do to get these materials to more schools this fall.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I mean, you've just, ever since I met you, I think just painted this picture for me, and just even from personal experience of having LGBTQ folks in our family, that the impact that, if I think about the books that I loved growing up, or a teacher that really meant something to me, and the incredible impact that they can have on you, and the challenge when you don't see yourself represented. I think, many of us can probably completely relate to how that might feel. We can imagine that. And especially as you have also illuminated for many just the kind of underreported story of what it's like for LGBTQ youth who are living in homes where they may not even be accepted and have now been on like lockdown for so long.
I remember as early as like third grade, every single book that I was assigned in class, I learned how to read in second grade. I was a little bit of a late bloomer, but when I did learn to read and started getting book assignments as early as third grade, every single time I would wonder if like there was going to be some sort of, I didn't know what gay meant back then. Like, was there going to be something that I could see myself in, or like really relate to a character? I never saw that all through school, right? And it wears on you, right? Every single time, basically coming up short and being disappointed. By the time you leave school, you realize, you try and connect the dots in your own mind. Is there a reason why I'm not seeing this story, right? Is there something wrong with me? And kids deserve to, not feel that way.
Well, and I think it's interesting how, well, first of all, you grew up in a tiny town, the son of beekeepers, and couldn't read till second grade, but Joe graduated from Yale and was like president of his class. So I just want to, you made it far. You went a long way, Joe. Good job.
Thanks, Laura.
Liam also attends Yale, oddly enough. No reason that we weren't connected those two, but it's just an interesting.
And Joe, you've got more to go. You've come a long way, and you're still going.
Yes, good job.
Oh, I thought you meant on my reading, which that is also fair. I can still barely read. So.
Well, I think it's interesting too, Joe. What you've shared with us before is how you just decided to go back and tell your high school teachers how you felt. If you want to just, if you don't mind, I think it's just interesting to hear. You were like, hey, you know what? Now that I think about it, I really would have liked that. I think I'm going to tell someone. Like, can you just tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, I didn't go back to my hometown for about 5 years after I graduated from high school. I was just so alienated from that experience. But like Laura said, at some point I just decided, it's worth having an open conversation with some of my teachers about that experience and asking them, like, what would it take moving forward to bring some positive representation of LGBTQ people into my school and to other schools? Again, so that the next generation of kids can feel a little bit better about who they are when they're growing up in this town. And it was hard. I don't know if I've actually told you this in the past, Laura. Like, I drove up to my school and like I literally could not get out of my car. Like I literally was sitting there like shaking in my car for 20 minutes before I was able to like build up the courage to leave and to go walk into that building. And like, again, I'm not someone who should feel that way, quote unquote. Like I was, prom king in high school, like I was class president, whatever, right? By all, accounts, it should have been fine. But on the inside, I felt terrible the whole time. So again, that just reinforced to me, like I needed to go back and open up to my teachers and show them like, this is something that really matters, right? And kids might be hurting in ways that you don't see. So let's do something about it. It doesn't have to be super hard. And here's a way to start.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you made that step. And now look at you in 50 states, the incredible like impact you're having. Speaking of sort of personal stories, Liam, I know that you've shared that over, the last year since Invisible Hands was formed, there have been like really interesting other relationships formed and friendships. And I was wondering if you could share with our folks just what has been maybe a really impactful story, or even, a couple stories that as a result of the work that you all are doing and really the community connections that you're all making, because that really struck us. I know beyond, this isn't just delivering groceries. It was like about humanity. Yeah. So would love to have you share a story or so.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And thank you, Joe, for sharing. It's been interesting. One thing that my co-founder Simone said that I really liked was it's not about social distancing this pandemic at all. That's the wrong term to be using. I don't want to speak for the scientists, but like just societally, that's the wrong term to be using. That it's important that we be physically distancing, but it's also imperative that we be socially engaging. And the two can and must happen at once. It's only by pulling together that we're going to pull through this thing. And so, there was one woman I delivered to who I don't know how many of you are from the Upper West Side of Manhattan, but Upper West Side Jews, we're a squad. We stick together. And so one woman I delivered to tried to set me up with her granddaughter, which was very sweet, and sent me a picture of her. Got a little weird, but it was very sweet and well intentioned. One woman I delivered to, Carol, I'm actually delivering to her again tomorrow. The first time I went to her home, I dropped off the groceries and backed up to 6 feet, very respectfully, et cetera. And she came out. She's a puppeteer, so she had a little puppet that was holding a sign that said, "Welcome, Liam," in invisible hands. And she said, "Come on in. I made you some cookies." I was like, "Carol, what are you talking about? The whole point is that we're supposed to be distancing." She's like, "No, it's fine. Come on in. I made cookies." I was like, "No, Carol, that ruins the entire point of distancing and invisible hands." And she said, "Okay, fine. But when this whole thing is over, you're coming over for some cookies and tea." And I said, "Okay, fair enough. Sounds like a plan." And look, we've kept in touch ever since then, and we've become friends. And she's fantastic. She told me about her puppeteering career and as a teacher, and she's a Fulbright scholar, and she's this fantastic woman who, it turns out, also goes to my synagogue because, again, Upper West Side Jews are a squad. But I never knew that, and I who knows if I would have met her if not for this pandemic. And it has been this weird silver lining. And so relationships like that are fun and funny. But they can also be really profound. I got an email from a woman who lived in Michigan, and her father had lived in New York, and he had been diagnosed with COVID in April or May of the pandemic. And he was in his 80s. He had nobody he was living with, and he had no way to get food. He had no resources. And so she heard about our service, and she reached out to us, and this elderly gentleman's volunteer would deliver to him every week and drop off food, drop off medicine, whatever he needed. And she said they would then sit on either side of his door and talk for hours about their lives and their fears and their joys. And they became friends. She said, they never once saw each other. They wouldn't have recognized each other if they passed on the street, certainly not without masks. But they were friends. And he passed away from COVID. But his daughter wrote that, this volunteer's help was not in vain. And the relief and reassurance that you were able to provide in my father's time of greatest need was immense. And he talked about you all the time and was so grateful for this friendship and that this complete stranger could be there for him at a time when I couldn't be as his own daughter. And I think that is the spirit of service and community that has pulled us through this. That even in the worst of times, I was 2 years old on September 11th and lived in New York City, so I don't remember it that well. But I remember the stories that my mom told me weren't even about the towers coming down, but they were about the fact that so many people ran into danger on that day. And afterwards, firefighters couldn't buy their own groceries for months after, because as soon as they went to the grocery store, people would leap to pay for them. And similarly, it's safer out there now, which is really good. But especially in the early days, we didn't know what was going on. And people were saying, I'm going out there because there are people who need my help. And people who, if I get sick, I, get a cold or whatever. But if one of these people gets sick, it could be life-threatening. Mm-hmm. And so people made that choice. And I'm reminded weirdly of a quote from The Walking Dead, where the one character says, you can't choose whether or not you're going to risk your life. All you can choose is what you're risking it for. And I think when we devote ourselves to something greater than ourselves and to the service of other people, there are beautiful relationships and a beautiful community that can be formed out of that.
I mean, I don't even know what to say after that. That's amazing, Liam. And, again, I said it right when we met with you. I think there is definitely bravery involved in running towards. You and Joe or Liam quickly was 10,000 volunteers strong, running towards something to help instead of away from it. And I'm sure the story of the gentleman you just told who unfortunately passed away is by no means unique. I'm sure that the comfort and community and care that a lot of the folks you've delivered to felt is is running throughout the city. So that's pretty amazing. Joe, we have a few minutes left, and I was also wanting to invite you. I know we've heard some amazing stories about the results of your work, and I think it really brings it to life for everyone. So I would love if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of one of your stories of impact with the group here before we go.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're definitely the stories that you kind of hope for and you expect. And then there's some other ones that take you by surprise. I actually got a really nice note. I don't have a quote from The Walking Dead for you, but I have a quote from this great teacher named Jody in Nebraska, and she is the next best thing. So I actually want to read that to you. I got this note earlier this week, and I think it just sums up what we hope to get for our students. So she wrote, "I cannot express the excitement Hope in a Box generated for my students. I personally didn't read a book that featured queer characters until I was much older. And many times the queer character was a quirky sidekick or depraved lunatic, rather than a realistic, dynamic protagonist. Representation matters. I shared this box with my students, and I wish I could have captured the light in their eyes. The support, connection, comfort, calm, joy, excitement, mirrors, windows, doors, and literal lifelines that these materials provide to adolescents in our school and community are absolutely invaluable, and they make a difference like no other resources in all my years of education." So that's one of the things that you hope, you'll get from a teacher or from a student. There are other ones that kind of take you off guard, right? So there was this teacher in New Mexico. We checked in with her maybe like 6 months after we'd sent her the Hope in a Box package, and she told us, "Look, I don't have any of the books anymore. My students will like quietly check them out, and they won't give them back. And like, I don't really care because it means that these books have like spoken to them in a really important way and they can't like bring themselves to part with them. But it means that you need to send me another package of books." So there's stuff like that too that's kind of beautiful and takes you by surprise.
It is beautiful. And I know, not to be overly dramatic, but it can be a lifeline. I know we've talked about that before, Joe, and one of the things Joe's organization does is when a teacher assigns these books, they become an ally and someone that the students know is open to them. And sometimes that's who someone needs. And so it's the books and a lot more, but that is just beautiful. I know we are just have, I think, just a couple minutes left. If anyone has questions, you can throw them in the chat, but I just can't thank you enough, Liam and Joe, for continuing every day to inspire us. I'm going to turn over to Elise in a minute, but I did just want to, I'm like going off script. I'm sure she's like, you're going off script. But you guys just inspire us so much. And we hope that, like, for you all who are joining us today, number one, that you also are inspired by their organizations, that it makes you think about how you spend your time, how you make your mark on the world. We're counting on you all as we climb out of this pandemic to take the lessons learned from this and make our world a better place. But also just from a Grant Thornton perspective, I know our people get to learn about these issues and these organizations these are young, upstart, emerging organizations that are like taking off. And we, we're not necessarily working with a lot of large, well-established organizations that a lot of you have probably heard of before, because we just sort of felt like we want to help, we want to lift these organizations up, and we want to take good ideas and like help these folks run with them. And so it's had a huge impact on us and our people, all the ways that they've been able to get involved with our Paladins and support our Paladins. And I hope you all just leave feeling the same way. But I just can't thank you guys enough for what you do. And
Thank you, Laura. Well, if I could just sneak in there really quick and just say one thing for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
It'll be a little bit longer than that, 'cause that's how I roll. But I just truly want to thank Grant Thornton, and all of y'all are really lucky to be working there, because it's an awesome place. And there are a lot of organizations that like to advertise and talk a big game about, we supported all this fantastic work, which I'm sure is true, and I don't want to knock that. But the notion of supporting young and up and coming organizations, in the politics of social good work, there's not a lot that we can offer in return to established organizations, right? We're new, we're up and coming, we don't have a ton of like power or money, resources that we can offer. What we can offer is community services. And so for an organization like Grant Thornton to trust us, to give their name, recognition to us, to support us financially and logistically is a huge gift, and we are really, really grateful to have you as a partner.
Oh,
it is a rare thing, and we are very grateful for it.
And the last thing that I will add to that is like, this isn't just part of the cause marketing team, which is awesome. Laura and Lisa are like my favorite people, and we talk like every other week still. It's like all parts of Grant Thornton, like their chief marketing officer, their chief transformation officer, local chapters, local offices. Like this is really, it is a culture at Grant Thornton that I have not seen with any other company, any other organization. So,
and we're not paid to say this.
No, we're not. It's totally off script. So.
I feel like I might have to now. No,
yeah, exactly.
You guys are so.
Yeah, I'm actually applying for an internship if this gets me, gets my resume to the top.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I used to run a nonprofit, just FYI to the folks on the phone, and it is hard to get your foot in the door at an organization. So for me, that's such a labor of love to have our firm make a somewhat, take a different path on our corporate social responsibility, and who we work with has been just incredible. Because I've been in your guys' shoes, so I do know that, but we appreciate it and appreciate all of you. And Molly, I see you've popped up, which means we've gone a minute over maybe, and I'm supposed to turn it over to you.
And if anybody wants to, sorry, really quick, if anybody wants to connect, ask questions, need inspiration, advice, anything like that, happy to connect. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, look me up. Liam Elkind is my handle, literally everywhere. So happy to talk.
Liam, real quick, you got a question in the chat about, do you collaborate with fraternities?
We do. That's funny that you asked. We're actually working with the frat. God, I forget which one it is.
Throw your email address in the chat, and then you guys can connect and
copy that.
Make that.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We'll be happy to work with yours.
So I've lost now the question, but whoever asked that question, just shoot Liam an email. We're gonna be real informal about that. Here we go.
Yeah, and definitely going on top of that, if you do, any of our candidates on the line, if you do have any more follow-up questions, you can reach out to your local recruiter and we can get you in contact as well. But that being said, thank you so much, Laura, Elise, Joe, and Liam. This was incredible. And then we do appreciate everyone that joined us today, and we will see you guys tomorrow for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion session. So thanks again to everyone who's joined today.
That's going to be so good tomorrow. Enjoy.
Yeah. Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
And do you want me to stay on, or am I good to go?
You guys are good to go. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Sounds good. Looking forward to it. Take care, y'all.